My name is Sam I-shan, and I'm a guest programmer for the 32nd Singapore International Film Festival. I'm joined today by Kiro Russo, whose film El Gran Movimiento screened on 1st December. So Kiro Russo is based in Bolivia, and his first and second feature films, Dark Skull and El Gran Movimiento, have been screened and awarded at festivals all over the world, with El Gran recently winning the Horizon Special Jury Prize at the Venice Film Festival. So welcome, Kiro, and thank you very much for making the time to speak with us today.
Thank you very much, I-shan, for the invitation, and thank you very much for the Singapore Film Festival. I'm very happy to be able to share the film with you and to share some words about it now more with you. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Okay, so we'll just plunge right into it. So one of the things that we really are struck most by, obviously, is the city of La Paz, which opens and closes the film. So we see the markets, the small rooms, and the hills and the forest of the Altiplano Mountains. The scale that you kind of cycle through is very large, and you've used techniques such as like zooming and panning throughout. So could you speak about why you chose to shoot the city in this way?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to speak slow because maybe you're going to have some cuts, in my voice. To prevent that, I'm going to do this, like speaking slow. Well, I really wanted to do a film about my city, but mainly beyond my city, I wanted to do a symphony of the city. You know that at the beginning of the 20th century, the symphonies of the city were really, really famous in Europe, mainly in Germany. We had some French symphony of the cities, and obviously we had some Russian symphonies of the city. And this cinema was very much to praise the modernity at that times, And at the same time, I feel that I really love the silent cinema too. I wanted to do a film that can take some elements from that time and to make a bit of a kind of a reinterpretation and a reappropriation of this style, to do a new film from Bolivia, from a city that is very particular topographically as La Paz, to talk about maybe postmodernism, but from Bolivia, and to make a kind of criticism to the system, to the capitalist system that we all are very immersed now, But at the same time, I obviously wanted to do a tribute for my city, La Paz. My city, La Paz, is always have been very represented, mainly in literature. And I wanted to do a connection between these representations and the symphonies of the city, and to use the topography of my city as a vantage to explore the form and the traces of time in the city through the zooms and through the pans, to portray also these traces of time. For me, it's very important to take cinema also as a document of a time, of an era. And I think we really we really lost a lot of this idea because of the invasion of the image and videos that we have in our pockets, and all the saturation that we have. But I really want to take the time to really stare at these traces of time, and at these, you can say, moments, specific moments of some of things in the system that are portrayed through the city. That's a bit one of the reasons why I wanted to do this film about my city. But at the same time, the other reason is that I'm very, very connected with the characters that I work with. They're actually friends that I have from a long, long time ago. For example, Max, who plays the wizard in the film, it's my friend since 2004. And he's a very, really, actually in the real life, a very strange character. He's a man actually that lives at the boundaries between, the city and he's a kind of hermit, we can say. And at the same time, he thinks that he's a kind of man that domains the city as a space, And he took me during the years to many special places, to amazing views that he goes to stare at the city. And I wanted to do this, because the film, I think, explores a lot a man who wants it from the lowest place to go inside to the system, and there is another man who's staring everything outside, from outside. I think these elements led me thought about this film.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really rich response, and I'd like to come back to some points that you raised a little later on. But first, I'd like to invite you to speak a bit more specifically about the locations that you shot in. The market is a very important location, and we also see some glimpses right at the end of the mines that your main character, Elder, and his friends came from. And also, you see the hills and people just going up and down, and then obviously the mountains around. Could you give some details about some of the locations that were particularly special for you, or perhaps some of the more unique locations that Max showed you in the course of making this film?
Well, obviously the market for me have been one of the most important locations at the film, because the market in my city, and I think in all the cities in the world, also in Asia, I think also in Singapore, are centers in the places where many people from different social classes. And in Bolivia, I don't know, in Asia, for example, the particularity of Bolivia is that we have many, we can say even ancient times coexisting to the modern and postmodern times that we were living. That is the same that I saw in many Asian films. That's what I was saying before, that I find many connections between some elements in Bolivia and with some countries in Asia, because we have these beliefs with ancient beliefs. We have beliefs in alternative medicine. We have beliefs also in many representations of mythology through animals, for example. These elements are very similar. And I think the market was the most, the biggest place that can, unite all these things in one place. And there are many indigenous that are arriving to the market, but they are completely indigenous and they are living as ancient times until today, but they don't even they don't know how to speak Spanish, for example, but they come from their lands to the market. And at the same time, many people from even social high classes go to the market. For me, it was very important to portray the market because of this. And other locations were really, cared to two things. One, I didn't want to do a folklorical portrait of my city. For example, in my city, we have a very famous mountain that it's called Illimani. It's a very huge volcano with snow, like a very typical postcard, presence for the city. And in fact, I decided consciously to not portray that mountain, because I wanted to do a film that can show different angles of my city and really take advantage for the topography that we have. And this introduced us to the use of the zoom, because there's another part of the creation of the film that was based in two things that happened to me at the beginning when I was writing. I was reading Allan Poe, and I wrote a tale that is the Man of the Crowd. I don't know if you read it, but it's basically very similar to the film, because it's the opposite. It's a bourgeois guy that at the beginning of the 19th century is staring to many people. There are a lot of descriptions of what he's watching until he looks at this strange guy that is a bump, and this tale, it's like he follows this man during a whole day, and in the end he understands that this guy is going to walk nowhere. He's walking to nowhere. And I think for me it was very interesting, this idea, because at the same time it portrays the same, we can say the same idea that I used in the film, because I'm staring at these characters. I can say that I'm a bourgeois, obviously, and at the same time the zooms and are representing my point of view. But at the same time, I think the zooms are representing the point of view of Max, who is the guy who is outside the system and it's watching and staring and trying to see the city from all the places that he's going around. And at the same time, I wanted to do something that because I really believe and I consider myself a very formalist filmmaker, and I really want to, I always put myself obstructions when I'm doing films. You know, and in this case, in this film, I obviously wanted to really explode the zoom as as a main formal tool that I choose. And I really wanted to you know, evoke something that I thought while I was flying uh, with from one city to another. I really like to watch the cities from the plane. And something that always obsessed me is the idea that when we're flying, we're not able to watch the people down there. You know, we barely can see cars moving. And I thought, well, this point of view is very crazy because puts me in idea of thinking between, you know, the idea of individuality and you know, the multitudes. And I think there is something very much like that through the zoom and the mise en scène in this film, because we go very slowly through inside things, and then we go out and we are around the city, and we're, you know, taking the city as a main character for a long time, and then we go inside and we go inside some characters. We are with them for a slow time and we go out again, no? And I wanted to build some dispositive to make it work, and for me the zoom was the ideal form to do it, no? And also wanted to understand that because there are some multitudes in this film, this idea of getting inside of the system, and this idea also in the end of the film of what is inside of the character too, no? And the zoom also allowed me to explore, we can say, the insides of the character in the end of the movie.
Yes, I think that's really interesting, especially since you spoke earlier about your inspiration or perhaps debt to City Symphony films, like, and of course at the end where you actually directly quote from Bertolt's Man with a Movie Camera with a Score. I mean, that's a really interesting moment. So like I can see how the zoom and even the way that you kind of film through actual elements of the city, like the cable car window, or the men who are watching a boxing match through the window of a store. I think these are interesting ways where you actually force a certain kind of transparency and make people look through the lens of La Paz in a way. So I found that really, really interesting. I actually want to come back to something that you raised before about the connection between a place like Asia, where this festival is based, and also, you know, the city where you live and work, Bolivia. So what is your thought about what modernity means for these such places? Because aside from, you know, the different kinds of level of development in there, I think that people live life along many different kinds of time frames. We believe in things that are very ancient, like old medicine, as you just said, but we also have so-called Western doctors. We believe in the presence of the dead next to us, and again, we believe in animism, but also, you know, like even the presence of 80s music is so interesting because I think that we feel decades differently. So can you speak a bit about how you portray that in this film, and specifically with regards to certain kind of aesthetic decisions that you made, or even music decisions?
Yes, it's very interesting what you say, Isong, because I think the difference, we talk about the similitudes between a country like Bolivia that is very particular also in Latin America, you know, because what happened here is that the most majority of the indigenous have been killed, you know, around the other countries in Latin America. There are just a few countries where the indigenous prevail, and the biggest indigenous population obviously is in Bolivia, I mean, in Latin America, no? And we talked before about the similitudes, but I think there's a huge difference between Asia and a country like Bolivia, because we never really were able to connect with modernity, you know, and the eras and the times of the industrialization, we really weren't able to develop the industry at all. We are not a very big industry country. And I think that I feel, because I'm not Asian, but I think in Asia you were able to really to connect these two things in a weird way. I think you really develop so much the technology, but at the same time you prevail the ancient ideas at the same time. No, I think for a country like mine, it's like a more chaotic way of transculturation, we can say, a very chaotic way where we are taking elements always from outside, always from outside, but really conveying or coexisting with these ancient elements. And as you said, the music for me was one of the best ways of show this, because actually it's something completely real. I mean, it's even the dancing with the cholitas in the market, that is a very, risky and video clip scene, but I really think it's a very important scene for the film. I decided to do this because it's completely real. And in a weird way, I think what we prevail also in my country, it's the colonialism time. The colony, it's very alive in a way in Bolivia. And it's revealing in a very strange way also. And we for example, have a big tradition here. There are very big parties that are called prestes. And these parties are very much an emulation from the colony, because in the colony times, the feudos, they used to make huge parties for, 3-4 days to show the people that they were the people that had, that they were the wealthy people in the town, for example. And it was a way to put yourself in a higher place socially. And these parties, for example, still exist until today, and many of these parties are organized by the new rich people in Bolivia, that many of them are cholitas, like in the dance scene. Many people that, because we as Bolivia are very good in business, the people from here is very good in business. They make a lot of money doing mainly commerce. They take a lot of things from many countries to sell in Bolivia. And one of the things that for me was very curious, that in these parties nowadays they invite these 80 films groups, these 80s groups, and now they are very old, actually. I mean, but in the 80s, in this Italo disco wave, I don't know why it's so strong, this wave in Bolivia. They like it so much in the 80s that they, for example, there is a very famous group that maybe you also know it, Modern Talking, for example, is a very, very famous band from Germany. And actually they came 3 times to private parties, like 2019, This kind of, for me, crazy stuff, it's actually happening, and I wanted to portray it also in the film through these scenes. But also the idea, because the film has another thing that for me was very complicated to archive, that it mixes a lot of kind of styles, we can say, cinematographical styles. And I wanted to portray a bit the saturation that we're living now of films, or trying to do a film that it's very formal, but at the same time, you can tell that it has a lot of styles in it. Because for me, the film has a documentary, it has also modern cinema, it has also video clip, it also has experimental cinema, we can say, and everything is mixed together in one piece. For me, it was important to archive this. And obviously, the video clip was one of these languages that I used in the film.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also, I wanted to ask about your use of 16mm filming approaches, because you just spoke about the documentary, and I mean that's something that has really been used in, like, let's say, newsreel footage and so on. So, what were some of the challenges or possibilities that working with this kind of format afforded you?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that from Bolivia, where we are so far from the labs and staff, was very crazy to take this decision. But I really wanted to do it because of 2 things. I think plastically, the texture was very, very, very important. This film to really, first of all, have this dialogue with the symphonies of the city. I think it was incoherent if we shoot it just in digital, very shiny digital, to talk with these times of cinema. But at the same time, I think 16mm, it's very coherent also with the representation of the cities itself, because in the way we are living always in Bolivia, like a kind of late modernity. I think that's why we love so much 80s music, for example. No, it's something that is like that, and it, for me, was current to make a piece that, in its form, also plastically, it's more atemporal, we can say, because at the same time, with the lenses that we used and everything, it looks more like maybe 60s, 70s kind of look film, but the language is very much more like very contemplative and more, we can say, postmodern. For me, that was very current also to use 16 millimeter to to generate the unification of the whole different kind of styles that I used in the film. No, I think that was one of the reasons, plastically, and also obviously because I love how it looks. You know, it's very much more for me too much the colors that we can archive through the film. It's something very unique. I mean, it's not able to be emulated. But also another of the main reason is because I think as a filmmaker, obviously it's very important personally and professionally to be able to shoot one film in film. It's something amazing, you know, because once you do it, you really realized, I mean, I shooted some short films in film before, but obviously it's completely different to make a feature, because you really get something that you're never gonna get with digital. As director, there is the conscience of the time that is being captured. No, I mean the really conscience. And other thing that I really liked it a lot, it's the preparation as a director, that you really have to be so secure and sure what you want to have there. I mean, it's not. I think digital allows you very much more to improvisation. No, here you really have to know, and this conscience of when to shoot, I think, is very useful as a director for the next projects. I mean, I hope to still shooting in 16, but if not, I think also once you did it, if you're gonna use digital, it's gonna be very good for you, because something changed in your perception, I think. And for me, these whole things were very important about 16 millimeters.
Yes, we do have some directors in Singapore who also like to use this format, and maybe it's something about capturing the city, that immediacy and the discipline that it requires, that just, you know, like makes it so attractive. And I have to say that when I was watching it, like the colors of the day and the night that you shoot are just really very enticing, and makes it even look more mysterious. I also want to ask about the sound design that was done for this film. It's such an important part of this work, not just in terms of the music we just discussed, but also how it's layered and how you use the diegetic or non-diegetic dialogue and sounds to overlay, to sort of create different kinds of feelings and emotions in the viewer. Can you speak more about how you approached sound and sound design in this film?
Well, for me in this film, sound design was maybe one of the most important things. It's also because my background as a filmmaker were the sound at the beginning. You know, I used to work before directing in sound post production for some years in Argentina, and since then, for me, obviously, was so clear that sound is 50% of film. You know, and more in this film because I wanted to, you know, recreate or reinterpret the symphony of the city. For me, it was very clear that I wanted to do a symphony with the sounds of the city itself. You know, like use really pay a lot of attention to the sounds of my city, La Paz, and also to play with something that for me it's very well done in the film. That is, sometimes you're hearing some noises that are going to transform slowly into some music, and also the same dispositive backwards. You know, you hear music that it's going to turn into sound and then into noise. You know, for me that idea was very coherent to the idea of a symphony of the city that is not only based in music but also in the sounds of the city itself. You know, and something that I really made in this film that is very radical, that you can only tell this while you watch the film in 5.1 in the theater, it's the use of the surround. You know, I broke a lot of rules of the supposedly how you should use the surround In fact, I had a lot of, fights with some people in the zone because they say, no, you shouldn't do this. This is not allowed to do. I know that, but I really wanted to break these rules because I like to have a really surround city around you while you're watching the film. And I think it works very well. Suddenly you can hear dogs around you. Even I took the risk in some scenes to put even the dialogues behind you. But I think all these technical decisions are very useful to recreate a new space of the relation between what you're looking and the sound itself in the theater, how surrounds you, how surrounds you. I really wanted to test this, and for me it worked very well in the film. This decision came from my first film because in a very long shot we had some boys that for some reason stayed behind, and always in every projection the people thought that someone was talking in the theater and it was not part of the film, and in many projections some people was like yelling saying, shut up, we're watching the film, or something like that. But I really liked that effect, to really make the audience don't know if the things you're hearing are actually part of the film or not. And all this game is very much around the film. And also I'm very happy because I really pick a lot of attention to the sound details of my city, the dogs. There are many, because I think every city sounds different, and I think that to take the attention to these details was very important too. Also, there is this other decision that is also very risky, to hear the characters but don't watch them, and I think I decided to do this because I wanted to take the presence of the city all the time. Like, you're not just watching a film about the characters. I mean, one of the characters basically is the city itself, and sometimes we're gonna forget about the characters, or they're gonna be behind, and you're gonna be with the city. That's what what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that we are able to watch it in Singapore in person in the theater, especially since you've spoken about the importance of the 5.1 surround sound. So I want to ask about the ending, which is really astonishing. Perhaps it's not so good to, spoil the magic of it a little bit, but I would like to ask how you landed upon that particular sequence with the montage and all the quick jumps, and perhaps you can say anything about it that might shed light on such an amazing moment cinematically.
Well, for me, it was very clear that besides we're looking the characters and they are really, really present, there is not a build of a psychological background through the narratives in the films that I made. They are very much sustained by the cinema itself, which for me it means that they are sustained by the mise en scène and the sound and the editing. The mixing of these three elements for me are the most important thing to build the experience. And obviously, as as you're watching a formal experience, for me it was very important to make like a kind of very huge explosion. I mean, like a very peak, a huge peak in the film, but also through this idea, through film itself. And that's why I decided to do I don't want to tell what happens in Munich precisely, but this craziness, and I think the last part of the film is the biggest tribute to the symphonies of the city itself. But I really liked to combine this idea with something personal of the character, and I think that's what I choose to do that. And I wanted to give at the end something that is more sensorial, but that it could have also a big meaning to the story of what you see. I think that's why I decided to do that, and I think I thought this film very much like a kind of exploration to cinema. And you have some. I thought the film like this, like you have surprises. You're not receiving a huge story, but you're receiving cinematographical surprises, and suddenly you have the video clip, so suddenly you have the magic scene in the night, Suddenly you have the ending that is a kind of very choral, symphonic tribute to Vertov. Also, basically, you can really tell. It's great that you say, because it's the first person that really recognized that actually the music, it's their interpretation basically from Vertov itself, you know. I think that's something very interesting for me, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to reinterpret a bit the idea of Vertov, giving it in a formal way a meaning for a character, you know. That this connection, I think, is very interesting.
Yes, thank you so much. I think that what you've spoken about and shared with us has really shed a lot of light in the film, and just serves to supplement what is really an amazing experience. And I'm so glad we can all experience it in person. And I'd like to thank you once again for sharing your time and your thoughts with us. And we hope to be able to meet you in person soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Kiro.
much, Shannon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Singapore Film Festival and to all the audience that's going to attend to the festival and to the film. I hope to be there someday. Thank you very much.